Time to read for the kids. And gentlemen, good night, everyone. Please tell the significant others, if you are out at work, your essential workers, to go put the kids in front of the screen before we tuck them in. We're going to read some things to your kids.
Yeah. All right, everyone. So this live, I know a lot of you know Kern and I. This live is for the kids. To all our adult friends, we hope you all are safe. Hope you all are home with your loved ones. But tonight we'll be reading the Protector's Pledge for the kids tonight. So it's all about the kids. All right? So I'd like to welcome everyone once again back to Read to Me TT's Bedtime Stories. My name is Uncle Stuart, and tonight I'm here with Uncle Kern. Uncle Kern, would you like to tell them a little about yourself?
Well, kids, Uncle Kern, good night. A pleasant good night to all kids and parents, all right? Uncle Kern does event management. Uncle Kern designs clothing, so when you want something to wear that looks nice, but we'll discuss that at a later date. Tonight we read
it. And in the years to come, when the kids can get the clothes from Uncle Kern and even start to go to parties, just before that, kids, you all may be able to see Uncle Stuart on a plane. I work with Caribbean Airlines. I'm what you call a flight attendant. I'm those people that do the lovely demonstration to you. I bring all the yummy food and all the drinks. So make sure and listen to your parents, listen to the pilots, and listen to your flight attendants. All right? So.
Yeah. All right, kids. So before we begin, let's give you a quick, short recap. Our hero in the making, JV, having reconciled with his grandmother, revisited the forest of Oscuros, hoping to further his strange encounters. He found more than he'd planned in some poachers and followed them back to their lair, discovering the absent Mason Dikoto, brother of the missing girl. His vow to free the captured animals would lead to his strangest encounter yet, a meeting with the protector of the forest himself, Papa Bois.
All right. So, Chapter 9, The Pact. JV cautiously drew alongside Papa Bois. He followed the protector's gaze and stared past the pond, but could see nothing to explain the forest guardian's vigilance. Bewildered, he looked up, past lively strands in a bear that was being tugged at by the wind, past the smooth ram's horn, and finally fixed on the broad, inscrutable face focused directly ahead. He then caught the slow, deliberate movement of one of Papa Bois' long, hairy arms as it rose, unfurling a thick finger as it did so, a finger that pointed to the trees before them. Too short to see the object of such attention, and growing increasingly apprehensive, JV took a discreet step closer to the sturdy frame at his side. He was by no means comfortable being this close to Papa Bois, but as Granny B had said time and time again, better the devil you know than the devil you don't.
Better that. Although his eyes were riveted to the spot indicated by Papa Bois' finger, JV didn't detect anything unusual right away. He soon heard the rustle of leaves and crack of twigs. With teeth clenched, he prepared himself for what he was sure would be the emergence of another frightful character. Perhaps a Lagahu, not yet morphed back into the shape of man, or maybe even a ladger blessed with a frilly petticoats and cloven hoof coming to take him away. A day ago, such thoughts would have been laughable, but nothing much that could step from behind those trees today would surprise JV. His musings were cut short when Papa Bois, with fingers still held aloft, finally spoke. My companion and co-protector, Mama Glow. A figure approached, advancing closer and closer, its form becoming less blurry with each step, until JV was indeed caught by surprise.
Circling the pond coming toward them, indisputably real and now close enough to touch, was the mysterious lady he had seen in that same place almost a week before. She was of regular height, and the deep hue of her skin, which created a striking contrast with the color of her eyes, seemed to glow. Her dark braided locks twisted down, their ends brushing the waist of a patterned dress of a rippling green, brown, and gold scales that fell to the forest floor. Her presence alone would have been a shock enough, but following just behind, trailing a small ball of fur which protruded a snout and a pink whip-like tail was Adele de Cotu. Head bowed over the squirming animal, little Adele sang softly and caressed its soft coat, her strokes uninterrupted, even as the lady's slender fingers guided her forward. With a coy smile, the beautiful woman glided up to JV, who, dumbfounded, remained rooted to the spot. She looked him up and down, studying him at length, though her face did not betray any sign of recognition. "Is this the one?" she finally asked Papa Bois, never taking her eyes off JV. "It is," the protector said. "He is as I thought him to be. He will do." The lady bestowed another enchanting smile on JV. Papa Bois focused on the tiny ball in Adele's hands. "Yet another foundling, Mama?" he asked, peering at the restless creature. "Sadly, yes. This opossum's parents are nowhere to be found. But we're doing a good job with her, aren't we, little one?" Without missing a note in her song, Adele looked up and gave the faintest of nods before once again directing her undivided attention to her charge. "My little friend, my forest friend, there's nothing to fear from me. I'll keep you safe and warm and fed. All shall be well, you'll see. My little friend, my forest friend, don't worry, you're not alone. Though you may be hurt, feel lost and scared, with me you have a home."
JV snapped out of his stupor. Something wasn't right. Adele had seen him. He was sure of it. But it was as though she had looked right through and then past his body. Her big brown eyes, so much like her mother's, were blank. "Adele!" he called out. "It's me, JV, Jason Valentine." But she simply stood where she was, chin to chest, humming and tenderly stroking the now subdued creature. Taking a step toward her, he tried again, struggling to keep the panic from his voice, even as a cold feeling of dread threatened to overwhelm him. "Adele! Adele de Cotu! It's time to go home now. Everyone has been looking for you. Your parents are worried sick." He reached out and grasped her by the wrist, but she did not react and her humming did not stop. Instead, it was Papa Bois who spoke. "She will not answer, man's child." The way that he said it, in a calm, matter-of-fact sort of way, only heightened JV's alarm. He tightened his grip around Adele's thin wrist, but got no response. What is wrong with her? Why is she just standing there humming? He thought. I have to get her back to the village, he murmured to himself. She's not well. Not well, you
Not
say?
well, you say? Papa Bois queried, bending over and inclining her horn head toward Adele. Concern was unmistakably etched in the creased brow. Oh, she's just fine, Papa. Mama Gloria assured soothingly, gliding right up and brushing her fingers against the girl's cheeks. Nothing is wrong with the child. I believe what the young man means is that Adele, is it? Yes? Adele is different from how he remembers her. Isn't that right? She turned to JV for confirmation, and he nodded solemnly. Ah, yes, Papa Bois conceded, straightening up, the lines on his forehead disappearing. But that is to be expected. Worry not, man's child. She will be as she once was, once my vow has been fulfilled.
JV's eyebrows shot up, and his voice rose. Vow? You made a vow too? What sort of vow? And what's wrong with Adele? What did you do to her? His eyes darted from Papa Bois to Mama Glo, then back to Papa Bois, and he momentarily released his grip on Adele, but only so he could place a protective arm around her shoulders to draw her closer. Come there, Mama sighed. Don't get upset. No harm has come to your friend. We are neither her foes nor yours. She is truly an innocent and will be restored, although that mostly depends on you.
Me? JV asked, truly bewildered. Yes, but I am not one to explain, she said, moving away. JV focused on the protector. It is as Mama Glo said. Papa Bois confirmed, lowering his haunches to the earth and then crossing his long, hoofed legs before him. Once settled, he gestured towards Adele and began his tale. I first observed this youngling at the edge of my dominion. Timid, she dared not to enter, though it was clear that the one for whom she waited and the intended recipient of what she bore was already within the forest realm. From the cover of the trees I watched her wait until another man's child, old and taller than yourself, although not yet fully grown, emerged, met with her, and retrieved her burden. I believe you know of whom I speak, he paused. JV did know. It had to be Mason. He gave a brief nod, and Papa Bois continued.
I watched the youngling turn toward the direction from whence she came, and then followed the man's child to an abominable lair where many of my forest charges were being held captive. The protector's eyes flashed angrily, and a deep growl rumbled in his throat, causing JV to pull Adele even closer. There was no doubt as to what Papa Bois was capable of, and JV had visions of the hut's roof being torn off, the wooden walls crashing down, and vengeance and damnation being delivered on the captors inside. Yes, your instincts are right, Papa Bois said, watching JV carefully. At that moment, I thought my rage knew no bounds, and that I was capable of anything. But remember this, man's child. Wisdom follows. Rage alone is no answer. I am no friend to those who wantonly kill and capture my charges, and on occasion have paid them back in kind. But alas, in this instance, though I would eagerly take matters into my own hands, my passion and strength are of no use to me.
JV furrowed his brow. He did not understand how Papa Bois, as mighty as he was, could be so, well, powerless. If he knew about the animals in the hut, why didn't he just go in and rescue them? As if reading JV's thoughts, Papa Bois continued after gently brushing away a large horsefly that attempted to perch on his leathery nose. I understand your confusion, man's child. Listen well. You see, the protector and the co-protector's realm is a forest, a dominion created solely by Mother Nature, and the lair built by human bands is beyond our domain. So despite all my will and strength, I may not enter. He looked away, as though ashamed of this limitation, and JV immediately felt sorry for the half-man, half-beast, who could not carry his duty to protect his charges. Then he remembered Adele.
But what does that have to do with Adele? Why is she like this? I am getting to that. JV waited impatiently while Papa Bois repositioned himself, now curling both legs under his haunches. So with impotent rage, I left that terrible place only to come across this youngling once again. The very same who not too long before had met with one of the captures of my charges. She was laying unmoving on the forest floor, bending over her with three of those mischief makers, those duendes of the forest, who despite my constant scolding never tire of luring man's children into my realm and getting them lost. It will be a fine day indeed when their little backward feet lead them and their straw hats far away from those trees. I do hope that you, man's child, will be smarter than to ever succumb to their tricks and wiles.
JV had heard tales of duendes. They were supposedly spirits of dead children that roamed the forest, enticing their living counterparts in with songs and games, only to abandon them once they were completely lost behind the dark boughs. Given his present company, he certainly wasn't shocked to hear that they too were real. Suddenly, Pascal's gibberish the afternoon before about straw hats and feet now made perfect sense. He and his sister must have had a run-in with these very duendes. It definitely explained Carol's refusal to set another foot in the Oscuros and her cryptic warning that JV should also stay away. Of course, it would have been nice if she had been more specific, but if he were honest with himself, it probably wouldn't have made a difference. Chances were he may not have believed her, or if he didn't, it would have just been one more compelling reason to rush into the forest.
As I was saying, Papa Bois said, though she was unconscious, life had not as yet left the youngling. I could still sense the tormented state of her mind. Blinded by my desire for revenge, I would have left her to her fate, but Mama Glow sent the duendes on their way. And she said these words, which caused me to reconsider. She is but a young innocent. She herself has done nothing wrong. Her spirit is pure. I shall watch over her. To which I replied, what you say may be so, But I in turn vow that her mind shall not completely awake from its slumber until every last one of my charges is free. Until such time she is yours to care for, as you so desire. And that, man's child, is the irreversible vow I made.
JV turned to look at Adele. Her demeanor had not changed. She was still in her own little world, humming and completely unaware of his presence. I have to take her back, he said for the second time, trying to guide the unresponsive child away without success. You may do as you like, Papa Bois said. But know that if she leaves the forest as she is, she will never again be the youngling you knew, and will be forever lost to her parents. For the youngling to be restored, my vow must be fulfilled. And for that I require your help, man's child. Remember your own vow to rescue my charges. I ask nothing of you that you yourself were not willing to do. JV did not like the choice he had to make.
The whole village had been looking for Adele and had given up hope. And here she was standing next to him. She should be at home with her parents. Surely they would find a way to make her better. But deep down, JV knew that Papa Bois was right, and that he couldn't take Adele back to the village. Not yet, and not like that. He let his arm fall away from her shoulders, and Mama Glo, who had been waiting silently a few paces off, drifted over and took Adele's hand in hers. She then reached out with her free hand and gently lifted JV's chin so that he was looking directly in her eyes. He hadn't noticed before, but up close he saw that her pupils were diamond-shaped. No harm shall come to her while she's in my care, she said, the words sliding into his ears. You have my promise.
JV swallowed hard. With difficulty cast down his eyes. Mama Go let go of him, said, I will return shortly. When he next looked up, she and Adele were disappearing in the direction from which they had come. Once they had vanished, he turned to Papa Bois. So what now? JV asked. We make plans for the rescue of my charges and carry them out. Papa Bois gestured toward the path of mossy earth alongside him. Sit, he said. JV was aware of finally feeling more at ease in the protector's company. He sat. Papa Bois? He asked. Yes? I have a question, and you may ask it, man's child. Why do you wear a horn around your neck? It is as good a place as any to keep it, and my charges heed me when I blow. May I hear it? Its sound is not for human ears. Oh, Papa Bois? Yes, man's child. I have another question. I thought you might. You may ask it. Can you tell me about Mama Glo? The chuckle that started deep in Papa Bois' chest escaped as a hearty laugh, resonating throughout the woods.
Listen well, man's child. Wisdom follows. Very little is as it first appears. Though she may not look it, Mama Glo is as old as I, and every bit as powerful. The form you see is not one that you can trust. He grinned down at JV. And know this, she has husbands enough in this life and the next, though she is always on the lookout for more. He chuckled again, and JV, feeling a little foolish, decided he would never ask about the beautiful lady again. The sun had begun its slow descent, generously flecking everything with its copper rays. JV's eyes were drawn to the gleaming clusters of light on the pond's surface, and then to Mama Glo, who now sat on one of the rocks along the bank. The shimmering skirt of her dress fanned out, and its back flowed into the water. Adele was not with her. Perhaps sensing JV's concern, Mama Glo gave him a slight nod and said, as promised, she is well.
The three then started crafting a rescue plan. By the end of the discussion, however, JV was still worried. This was no game. He would be in danger. Would all go as they had devised? The fates of Adele and Curti, and his own safety depending on it. Was he really up to a mission of such great importance? Unwilling to admit to such insecurities, JV kept those doubts to himself. The protector bade him a sober goodbye before disappearing through the trees, and Mama Glo gave him a parting smile as she slipped off the rock and into the water. Whether he was ready or not, the time for action had come. JV cast aside his reservations and ran off to execute the plan.
Uncle Stuart, watch now. I am anxious right now, and I don't know where the story going, but
Chapter 10, we almost there.
oh, no, look at the comments. It's hilarious. Somebody put Mama goes out. Yeah.
Chapter
10.
10. Danger,
Danger,
danger
danger
everywhere.
everywhere. JV crouched behind the elephant ears once more and kept a close eye on the hut. He had been in position for 10 minutes but had seen no one enter or leave. Not sure how long he would have to wait, he was about to give his knees a rest and sit when he saw the door open. Stucky came out, stretched his arms, and leaned against the wall. Kiskady, kiskady, JV called, mimicking the song of the small bird of the same name. He did not have to wait long for the plan to unfold. Stucky stepped away from the hut and leaned forward. He craned his neck to get a better look into the tall grass in front of him. Then he froze. He remained that way for a few seconds before backing away. He bumped into the door, turned, scurried inside.
JV stayed low and snuck closer. He heard shouts and could distinguish the words "Anaconda, just outside," and "Hurry." His location, well hidden by the surrounding foliage, provided an excellent view of the front of the hut, and he watched as Stucky rushed out of the door. His rifle trained on the forest floor. Cutlass and Migraine followed close behind, their weapons dangling casually at their sides. Mason emerged last, hanging back with his arms crossed. "I'm telling you that Anaconda is somewhere close," Stucky shouted, the thick carpet of leaves crunching loudly each time he took a step forward. "Now listen here," Migraine stalled, stopping short. "I have the day planned out good. We have no time to waste on this stupidness, you hear? Jacobs will be back soon with the transport, and we still have to get the animals ready to travel to the Gulf today."
JV saw Migraine reach into his breast pocket. "Look," Migraine said, waving a piece of paper in Stocky's face. "You see all these people waiting for the merchandise? If you think I'm bad, you haven't seen bad yet. And you can't bet they won't put up with any delays, especially over a phantom snake." He poked the list back into his shoe. "Boss man, please," Stucky begged. "I know what I saw. I never thought a snake could get so big. But trust and believe. The shipment's worth 2-3 times more with it. I promise all those buyers will be fighting over the tail alone." Migraine sucked his teeth. But Stucky plowed ahead. "Give me half hour, boss, and we'll have it. If not, you fellas can tie me up and put me on the boat instead." Stucky chuckled and then squirmed beneath his boss's glare. After a moment of silence, Migraine yielded.
"All right, start tracking your snake. But we're back here in 20 minutes, with or without it. Now let's move." Stucky straightened, readjusted his stun gun, and marched off, leading the others into the surrounding forest. JV knew he didn't have much time before they, or the other guy Jacobs, returned, so slipping from behind his leafy cover, he set off at full speed for the cabin. Once he made it to the camouflage wall, he did as he had on his last visit. He scratched away a section of mud and leaves to expose a gap between the wooden planks. Peering through, he allowed his eyes to adjust to the darkness within. Everything was as it had been before, except that as far as he could tell, no one was inside keeping watch over the miserable animals. And miserable they were indeed. As if resigned to their unhappy circumstances, they seemed to have lost whatever fight they might have had when they were brought in, and now waited listlessly. Motivated more than ever to get them out of there, JV crept along the wall until he reached a heavy door. It creaked open easily with a gentle push from his shoulder.
On entering the gloomy space, he braced himself against impact, half expecting to be tackled by some unseen form, and fearing that his mission would be brought to an end before it had actually begun. No attack came. There was no one else in the hut. Reassured, he walked in and immediately began searching for Curti. His little friend needed to be among the first ones to be released. Hurrying along, he started to panic. He passed pythons and boa constrictors in the reinforced glass boxes, towering, compact cages of iguanas, turtles, parrots, finches, owls, and spider monkeys. Where were the capuchins? Wondering if by chance he had overlooked them in his haste or if they had already been removed, he tried to keep his discouragement at bay as he neared the back of the hut. But no luck there either. Only a cage of uncommonly quiet kikes, followed by another cage with white hawks, and then, could it be? Yes, there they were, 3 capuchin monkeys in the very last cage, and his body was among them. JV ran up and undid the latch. Curti crawled forward and then sprang to his rescuer, clasping his wiry arms tightly about the boy's neck. As relieved and overjoyed as JV was, he was even more conscious of the passing time and all that was yet to be done. He gently disengaged himself from the monkey's nimble fingers and said, Go. Go on and get out of here, Curti. Hurry. I've got a lot to do before those guys come back. Curti briefly rested a hand on JV's chest over his heart, then scampered off and disappeared out the door. When he was gone, JV looked down at the open cage. The other 2 capuchins were still huddled together, cowering in the rear corner.
Come on, you're free, move it, he urged, trying to coax them out. But they shrank back from his outstretched hand and refused to leave. Oh, come on, we don't have much time, he pleaded again. They didn't budge. Recognizing that he had hit a brick wall with those 2, JV was about to move on to the hawks in the next cage when he heard voices approaching. Uh-oh, he moaned. Here they come, sorry guys, he whispered and hastily closed the door on the terrified monkeys. Whirling around, he frantically scanned the room for a place to hide. There was practically no furniture apart from 1 small stool and a few cardboard boxes that served as tables. No help there. The voices were louder now, and he could clearly catch what they were saying. Migraine sounded furious. Waste of time. Should have known better than to follow that fool. He'd better find his way back here pronto. Which one of you 2 idiots left the door wide open? Don't look at me. Young boy was the last one out. JV recognized that voice as belonging to Cutlass. You left the door open, boy? I don't know. I can't remember. I don't think so. Psst. How can I fly with eagles when I'm working with turkeys, eh? Tell me that. You better hope all's in order.
JV finally zeroed in on the untidy pile of tarps in the corner. He dashed toward it, squatted down, and pulled one of the huge canvas sheets over his head just as the first set of footsteps entered the cabin. There in the darkness, his eyes were drawn to a small circle of light. Readjusting his body ever so slightly, he was able to peek through a hole that was no bigger than the width of his index finger. Through it, he saw that Migraine, Cutlass, and Mason had returned and were looking around. You're lucky, Migraine said to Mason as he cast an eye about the hut. It could have turned out badly for you. He snapped his fingers. Let's get to work. They propped the guns and blades against the front wall and picked up rolls of tape that were resting on one of the makeshift tables. Each then headed to a cage that was crammed with birds, and releasing the latches began to bind their beaks shut. Work progressed smoothly at first. Then it was as though an invisible switch had been flicked. Without warning, the orderly scene of a fraction of a second before was inexplicably replaced by one of utter chaos. The birds flapped and fluttered wildly, and those whose beaks had not yet been sealed let out air-splitting shrieks. Monkeys grabbed and shook the bars of their cages, hooting and screaming. Tangles of hisses writhed in a frenzy, their heads thumping against the glass. Enclosures and iguanas scurried around their meshed confines, whipping their tails from side to side. Initially, he was as baffled by the animals' behavior as the men. He was watching, seemed to be, but then he understood. This was Papa Boa's doing. The Protector had launched the second part of their plan, using his horn to call the animals to rise up and fight.
What in the world? Migraine began. But a spectacle owl that he had been clumsily attempting to subdue pecked fiercely at his palm, and his exclamation ended in a yelp of pain. He slammed the cage door shut and cradled the injured hand against his chest. Cutlass and Mason quickly followed suit, closing the cages they had opened and regarding each other in confusion. Then Migraine roared hoarsely above the infernal racket. "Be quiet!" he shouted over and over. "Just shut up!" His eyes were squeezed closed and he was massaging his temples. Pain was plastered all over his face. Cutlass and Mason practically jumped out of their boots when Migraine turned on them. "Stop there standing like idiots! What you're waiting for? For my head to explode? You!" He grimaced, pointing at Cutlass. "Start tranquilizing these beats. Pump them full if you have to. I don't want to hear another peep from these wretches for the rest of the day. And you," he said, addressing Mason, "go find that idiot and tell him to forget the stupid anaconda. We need him back here now. I'll be sure to deal with him when this job is over." Fumbling in his breast pocket, he pulled out his card of tablets and staggered to the door. I'm going to keep a lookout for Jacobs. Go on, get going. Mason slipped past him, then raced out, and Cutlass headed for the weapons against the wall.
JV watched Cutlass grab a pistol along with some darts from the weapon stashed near the door, load the gun, clip extra darts to his belt, and study the wall of rattling cages. Cutlass fingered the scratch on his neck, and then with a bounce in his steps, started toward the back of the hut where JV was hiding. JV's stomach tightened. He held his breath. Cutlass headed straight for the capuchins, strutted up to the cage, smirked and looked in. His eyes widened and his mouth fell open. He reached for the cage door only to discover that it was unlatched. Bravo, little monkey, JV heard him mutter. But if you weren't clever enough to make it outside, your days are numbered. Having secured the latch, Cutlass began a frenzied search, pulling cages away from the walls, appending boxes, and staring up at the spaces between wooden rafters and the palm ceiling. JV was
sweating under the layers of the canvas. There were only so many places for Cutlass to search in the tiny hut. It was just a matter of time before he was discovered. He needed to be ready. Cutlass kicked the stool, and JV instinctively shut his eyes when it crashed to the ground. When he opened them, Cutlass was no longer in his line of sight. JV listened closely. He did not have to wait long before he heard them, footsteps coming his way. He balled his hands into fists, preparing for the inevitable, and told himself that it was all about to be quick enough to make it to the door. He had no doubt that Papa Boa would keep him safe once he escaped into the forest. Any second now.
3, 2, 1, and whoosh! The tabs flew off with sudden force, and face before him registered hatred, bafflement, and fury. JV jumped out of reach and began his sprint toward freedom. Running past the cages, he zigged and zagged to avoid the hands that swiped at him, but kept his eyes focused on the door. He was almost there, stretching out to pull it open when two heavy hands clamped down on his shoulders and then pushed him chest first onto the hard, dusty floor. He grimaced in pain as his wrist absorbed the shock of the fall, and then he quickly flipped over so he could use his feet and rear end to scoot backward. Cutlass spat to the side and then grinned down at him. So what do we have here, he jeered, moving forward each time JV scooted back. A troublemaker? A spy? A hero? Now let's see. You wouldn't happen to know the whereabouts of a certain tailless monkey, would you? JV could go no farther. His spine was up against the door. You see, I have a little score to settle with him, Cutlass continued, but he seems to have disappeared. Which is too bad because someone else will have to pay.
As Cutlass lunged forward, JV reached up, grabbed a few darts from his attacker's belt, and plunged them deep into Cutlass's thigh. Letting out a loud bellow, Cutlass crumpled to the ground and pulled out the darts, trying to work them free while JV eased himself up bit by bit.
But his action
JV watched in shock as Cutlass's fingers slowly lost their dexterity and finally stiffened into claws. The man's threats and curses, which had degenerated into a gobbledygook, were silenced. His chest still rose and fell, but whatever was in those darts had knocked him out cold. JV carefully stepped over him. He really had to hurry now. He had no idea how long the tranquilizers would last, and he knew there was no way he'd be so lucky a second time if Cutlass woke up to find him still there.
He pushed
the heavy body out of the way,
pulled open the door, and then returned to his mission. The animals had calmed down, with heart pounding and adrenaline pumping. JV was about to liberate the first cage of scarlet macaws when the door to the cabin slammed shut. And exactly what do you think you're doing here, little boy? A gritty, menacing voice called out from behind him. JV despaired. He had no more fight left. Warily he turned to face what he bleakly assumed would be his final threat.
Bacchanal time.
This, I on edge. I anxiety proper.
So that's chapter 9 and 10 of the Protector's Pledge. Thank you so much for those that tuned in. Thanks again for joining us for Read to Me's nightly bedtime series. I hope you had fun reading with us.
Yes.
Uncle Kern and I read chapters 9 and 10. Tomorrow we have a special surprise. We'll be learning our A, B, and C's in sign language. And on Thursday, we'll have 2 new readers that will finish this great book for us.
Yes, of course. But before we go, it's really important that you listen to us. You guys listening, right? Do you want to be little superheroes? So if you want to be little superheroes, here's what you could do to help us. Wash your hands.
Wash your hands.
Keep your hands out of your mouth. Remind mommy, daddy, granny, and everybody to wear their masks if they're going out, to hilo and that kind of thing. And if they are going out, you can make a little game out of it. Sing happy birthday twice while you wash your hands, right?
All right. So we can do this, guys. We're all in this together. Thanks so much again for tuning in. Read to me. You have 2 new readers on Thursday. The sign language tomorrow for the kids. Thanks a lot, Uncle Kern. Have a good night and stay safe.
It was a pleasure and a privilege, and this is a wonderful initiative for the children. So till then, Trinidad and Tobago, be safe.
Good night.
Good night.